Welcome to this tutorial on naming library in Final Cut Pro using file naming conventions here at Shawnee High School. So we're going to open up Final Cut Pro, and the first time you open up Final Cut Pro, it has to have a library in it. Now the library is the main root section, root being kind of like the very first folder, and then within that there can be subfolders. So we're going to put this root folder not on, see if you hover, it's saying that it's in my users folder, Beepastone, movies, untitled. Well, that movies folder is on the internal hard drive of the Mac. If I show you in Finder here, it's a system drive inside of the machine, inside of the iMac. And then under devices, you're going to see a LaCie drive connected to your machine. That's a gray box underneath the machine, connected with a USB cable to the back of the machine. It's a terabyte hard drive, and that's where we're going to be doing all of our storage. So I already have a library on this named correctly. So see how this has in all caps 15-16, no spaces. And then I also have a subfolder named the same thing, all caps 15-16, no spaces. The library comes up with this purple icon. The subfolder comes up with this folder icon. The library, if you were to double click on it, it would open in Final Cut Pro. If you're double clicking on a folder, it opens up the files that are inside the folder. So this folder is going to be where all of your exported video files go. We'll make one of those later, but for this tutorial we're going to be concentrating on making a library. So I'm going to go back over to Final Cut Pro, and we're going to show you how to do that. So Final Cut Pro is open, and then you say File, New, Library. Now if your window pops up like this, it's because you haven't clicked this little icon, and that kind of opens it up and makes it look more like a Finder. And you'll see this left bar where you can get to all the different places on your computer. Internal drive is kind of like that top favorite section. Devices is like areas on the network. Shared is areas on the network. So we can go into LaCie server backup, and yours will say LaCie and then a number. And then from here, you're going to go in and you're going to name at the root. So as soon as you click on here, it'll be at the very front end, exactly what is laid out here. So I'm going to have to name it slightly different because I already have one. But so I'm just going to say all caps, my last name. Now, I actually want you guys to do first and last name. So, and then you're going to tack on. So full name 1516, which will be the year. And that's the only time we're doing all caps. When you're naming subfolders, I like to use the date first, and then if you look at this subfolder here, if I drag this out, you can see it. The date first, last name, and then something very specific about what's in that folder. So here we have a capitalized letter for each new word and no spaces. So it's very important not to use any characters other than dashes and underscores and then alphanumeric, so like letters and numbers. If you start using spaces and slashes, that gets into subfolder modifiers, and it ends up being %20s with spaces. They're like odd characters that you really shouldn't be using when you're creating files, because it causes problems when you're copying and pasting files from one machine to another, and especially when you're getting up to web. It causes some issues. So make sure that you name your library, first name, last name, all caps, and then it's going to be right directly at the root of your LaCie drive that's connected to your machine. We're going to say save, and then we have this new folder, this new library. Inside the library you'll see this folder called Smart Collections, more on that later. And then this is an event, so you can have multiple events within a library. And the events are kind of like automatically dated, and that's part of file management. We want you to put a date on everything. So all you have to do is single click inside of an event, like single click and then single click a second time if you need to rename it, right on the text. So single click a second time, and then I use the down arrow key, and that jumps my cursor to the end, and then I can tack in what this is. So for your very first project that you guys are going to be working, it's going to be the date, and then it's angled shots, A-N-G-L-E-D. Angled shots, I spelled it right. not angled shots, angled shots. And then you can single click away, and now you're ready to do your first file transfer. The other thing that you're going to do is keep your library section a little bit neater by closing the library that's comes up by default on the Mac hard drive. So that's just File, Close Library Untitled. You have to have it selected, and now you'll only have one library open, and then you'll be able to go in and start your importing, and then you'll see more stuff going on here. I guess the other thing I could show you, just to kind of kick it off, is inside of the event you're going to have media and you're going to have project files. When you create a new project, it'll appear in this window here. The other way to create a project file is File, New, Project, or it's Command N. So I like to use key commands. Command N will give me a new project, and then it's going to go in the event that you currently have selected, or you could choose other events if you had events created in your library. And then I also name projects with the same naming convention, no spaces, using a date and something descriptive about what that file is. So 12/2/15 angled shots, and then enter, and now we're going to have a project file within our event. And then once we do importing, you can say File, Import Media, and you'd have to have a card attached. That would give you files that'll also appear here, and then that would be edited on your project file in the timeline.